Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke Academy. Welcome to another episode. If you're on social media, well, of course you're on social media, you're watching this episode. If you browse social media, you've probably seen some videos of people mostly filming from grocery stores where they pick up items like this and read from the ingredients list. I love those videos personally because I'm one of those people that starting about 6 years ago really started to make a push toward eating healthier. Bear with me, this analogy will make sense in a few minutes, but typically what ends up happening is people pick up bags like this or canisters like this one and they read from the ingredients list. And you hear all of these really hard to pronounce things like monosodium dextramate, and I don't know, I made that one up, but I don't even know what most of this stuff is. We've got vegetable oil, which is corn and canola and soybean, and we've got monosodium glutamate. I'm reading from this particular bag at this moment. We've got potassium salt, corn flour, natural and artificial flavors. Who knows what that is? Dextrose and lactose and all kinds of stuff. Artificial color. Yellow number 6, yellow number 5, red 40, lactic acid, citric acid, and a bunch of other things. You've got a canister like this one that has similar stuff in here. It's got soy lecithin, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, natural flavor, dextrin. Colors include blue number 1, lake yellow number 6, red 40, yellow 5, blue 1, yellow 6 lake. I'm not sure what the lake reference is. Maybe that's a specific pigment or something. But so what's ended up happening, and here's another one. This one, same thing. It's got a whole bunch of stuff in it that's really hard to pronounce. And some of it seems sort of common between them. Well, over the past several years, one thing has really kind of bubbled up to the surface as a focus in the health and nutrition environment, and that's seed oils. It's, of course, people talk a lot about different facets of healthy versus unhealthy. You can find whole focus areas on the dyes that are put into foods, but seed oils seems to be, at least in my experience browsing social media, to be a keen focus point. And that brings me to a reference to what happens inside of your investment portfolio. And I'm going to draw the analogy. I've used the analogy before between the COVID jabs and what ends up happening in your 401k. And this, I think, is also a similarly adept analogy. We have people on Wall Street, and actually, hold on a second here. I'm going to back up a step and talk about the profitability of things like this. So I've seen bags like this one that go recently for as much as like $8 for the big, what do they call it, party size or family size or gargantuan size, whatever they call it. But it's just slightly larger than this one. And you might find it for $7 or $8. And people apparently are willing to pay that. And I did, for purposes of this conversation. I bought a bunch of these things. By the way, as a side note, because I know I'm going to get some notes from people asking, I am not a purist. I do believe that I will eat some of these sorts of things. I do believe personally that there is no such thing as an unhealthy food. There's an unhealthy diet. If you eat this sort of thing, or cake or whatever, occasionally, it's probably not all that unhealthy. But if you make it a food stuff and eat that way a lot of the time or all the time, I feel quite certain personally that your health will suffer. And when you look at the profitability, let's assume that the giant bag of this stuff is $8. Let's just round up to $8. And at the same time, a lot of the same people will go to the healthy section, a healthier section of a grocery store, and look for organic, natural, grass-fed beef. That's a focus of mine, so I'm going to draw the analogy. And the natural grass-fed beef might be $8 per pound. And people will balk at that, and they do. And I see them talk a lot on social media about, oh my gosh, have you seen this? You know, if the cost of organic free range eggs or whatever, fill in the blank. it's outrageous that is that expensive. Well, I firmly believe that the profit margin, the companies that drive products like this, I believe that the profit margin is vastly higher on this product at $8. Again, this one was not $8. I'm rounding up and talking about their whatever party size or whatever they call it, versus the profit that is derived from a pound of organic, natural, grass-fed beef. I think very slim profits on the beef, especially with the regulatory hurdles and burdens put on farmers now, but that's a topic for another conversation. These types of items that they're splashy and flashy and they attract a lot of attention and they have really neat packaging and you get your plastic wrapped stuff, those the profit margin and the shelf life is a lot longer too. So they can go and all kinds of corner gas station outlets and dollar stores and those kinds of things and sit there indefinitely for long, long periods of time until somebody happens along and spends their $8. I think this one may actually be around $8. So in the healthy realm, and I will argue this, I know there are probably some vegans or vegetarian or whatever that are going to argue that you need to eat bunny food and leafy vegetables. I do eat that stuff, but that's in addition to the meats and natural proteins that I pursue. Sorry, I'm getting too far into the weeds with my analogy, literally. But this, I think, costs about $8. And if you're paying $8 and assuming you're not in the vegan, vegetarian realm or whatever, why don't more people pursue the $8 pound of beef and make some sort of meal out of that? It's just bad craziness. But more to my point, in the realm of healthy foods and healthy diet, at least people are talking about it. People are considering the nutritional value of the things that they're putting into their bodies. I've been struggling for years to try to get more people aware and thinking about the health and well-being of their financial life. What are you putting into, or more likely, what are you allowing to be put into your IRA account or your 401k or other types of investment accounts? Did you inherit something from grandma and grandpa or your rich uncle? If you did, kudos to you. That's awesome. I'm glad for you. But what's in there? Is it the financial equivalent of seed oils? Because where we are right now, and I've shown it over and over again, I keep doing virtually the same analysis and coming to the same conclusion that the cheapy, gimmicky, flashy looking product that is pumped into virtually everybody's financial diet. And of course, I'm referring again to a couple of episodes. If you haven't watched, I encourage you to go back and watch the Parade of Woke Sameness and the Globalist Bubble, where I show that huge numbers of mutual funds and things like them have allowed themselves to be corralled into virtually identical investments. And the more we've moved into allowing our money, 401k, 403b, IRA, etc., to be invested just like virtually everybody else on the planet, the more we have a small number of companies that are vastly overfunded and huge, huge numbers of small business enterprise and free market economy that's strangled. It's suffocating for lack of funding. And it's been that way for a long time, at least 5 years. It's migrated into, and again, I'm going to use the analogy because I like it and it's an adept one. There's an economist that I listened to a couple of months ago in a live podcast. I joined in and listened in over a working lunch. And this economist made a great and pretty profound comment, and it has to do with Apple stock. He was talking about the current stock price of Apple stock. And he said the following: if you believe in the current price of Apple stock, then you believe that we will all be living in Apple homes, wearing Apple devices, driving Apple vehicles, and streaming Apple services. Or put another way, as I added to it, because I'm kind of a sci-fi fan and I love sci-fi, I said, in order to justify the current value of Apple stock, we would have to find another planet full of humans and sell Apple products to them as well. It's ridiculous. I really argue that a long time ago, we went far beyond reasonable pricing for that stock, but there's a double negative to it. Not only is that extraordinary extra undue and unnecessary risk to you, the investor, or actually maybe it's a triple negative. The other negative is we're funding woke. And if you look at the behavior and the corporate stance and funding of Apple stock, it's way ridiculously woke. Nobody should want to be putting their money into it. And the third negative in that equation is we're not allowing that money to go to where it should go, which is the next Apple, the new thing, whatever the new business that is going to start in somebody's garage and grow and continue to flourish and develop and expand and acquire and test new things and have research and development and eventually get to the point where they could compete with Apple. That is what globalists want. They don't want competition. They don't want the next new business. They want those eight-ish companies. It's actually I've been referring to the S&P 500 recently a lot, and there are around 8 companies that have around 40% of the total S&P 500. That is a whole, I could do an entire segment on the misrepresentation and overuse and abuse of just the S&P 500 as a market index. But suffice it to say that there are around 40 companies that are ginormous, absolutely massive, globalist companies that have so much money they don't even know what to do with it anymore. And one of the things they did a few years ago, I think it was 2023 or 2024, I'd have to look up the article. I've shared it. You can go back to the post. The CEOs of many of those globalist companies received an annual bonus of just short, average of just short of $17 million. And many of them had actually harmed their company. They had done things to the company that required downsizing, laying people off, firing, closing locations. But then they received a $16.7 million, I think that was the average that they came to in this article, $16.7 million. Well, think about the small businesses out there and mid-size and large businesses that could get larger and they could grow to the point where they could compete with a Meta or an Apple or Microsoft or one of them. Of course, those companies don't want competition. They'd love to have $1 trillion apiece and have zero money going to their future competitors. And they've sort of arranged an environment where we're allowing that to happen. And that's where UnWoke Academy comes in. UnWoke Academy exposes all of that. I started to see it. I got in big trouble when I worked on Wall Street by exposing the undue and inappropriate processes that allowed big money from U.S. pensions in particular, which happens to be an area of expertise for me, retirement plans, pensions, public employee retirement systems, things like that. It's where I've worked for decades. And I saw behavior that was funneling money into, at the time it called out BlackRock. And BlackRock, I firmly believe, and I wrote a big 3-page letter on it, which got me into some big hot water, talking about how typical due diligence processes, which is the evaluation, and quite simply, I want to put that in the simplest possible terms. If you're managing, let's say, the public employee retirement system for the state of Ohio, you certainly could not go out, if it's your responsibility to manage that effectively on behalf of all the great workers all over the state of Ohio, you couldn't go and pick your brother-in-law because you like him. You couldn't go and pick a college roommate because you think that he or she is a great person. You can't do that. You have to have a process. And the process looks like something you would expect. The process looks like you and your team going out there and looking at all the different managers, all the different people that handle investment dollars on behalf of other people. And that means things like mutual funds and stuff like it. Many of those managers have all kinds of different ways of investing through them. You analyze and evaluate and you pick the best, and then you document it. You have to document that. Because if somebody comes back later and challenges you and asks, why did you pick this manager instead of this manager? You have to have a methodology and a system to it. That got blown up, and I saw it in I think it was 2007, 2008, my big 3-page letter, the big one that got me in all kinds of hot water. And I've seen it grow and get worse and expand since. I've seen, and I even did a request for information asking money managers, we sometimes call them portfolio managers. That's the people that run things like mutual funds. Explain yourself. If you are using any of these woke standards, if you are claiming to be fixing the environment or saving the earth or climate adjusted climate change theory, or you're using diversity, equity, and inclusion to make the world a more just and verdant place, or you're using any form of critical race theory, any of those things, if you're using that, define it. You have to. It's not a question. It's not a maybe you could if you want. They must. They absolutely must. None of them answered formally. I got 0 formal answers. I had lots of phone conversations, many of them with people who said one of 2 things. Typically, it was either, yeah, I know, I think I can understand where you're coming from, and I see, and I might agree with you, but I would get fired if I stuck my head up and said, whoa, wait a minute, we're not doing the right things for our investors. Another group of people routinely answered, yeah, but it's easy. We're making easy money. In the past, things like mutual funds had to go out and get teams of people, and they would go out and do all sorts of exhaustive research and due diligence, and they would evaluate companies and look for what are called fundamentals. I know this is kind of boring stuff, but it's also important stuff. They would look at everything, and they would try to find the slightest little edge over their competitors' research teams and find the company that was maybe some hidden gem. Or they would try and anticipate some company that looked good, but it was about to lag or fail in some way. And that research costs money. You have to hire teams of people to do it. So many of them scaled back, cut cheap, drove up profit margins, and instead of research and due diligence, they started replacing critical thinking and reason with virtue signaling, with the appearance of some sort of flashy something. They just put a label on it, environmentally sustainable, or ESG. That stands for environmental, social, and governance. Or they put some critical race theory label on it, like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they put it up on their website, and they lured in trillions of dollars. Thankfully, we're getting to the point now where we've got a number of different state attorneys general, we've got a secretary of state, and many unions and places like it that are catching on, and they're getting smart, and they're launching lawsuits or writing letters saying, we don't allow that. No more can you put a label that's fake veneer on your mutual fund or whatever the investment pool is, and have us give you billions and trillions of dollars. You have to actually do it right. And we're seeing the repercussions from that. I've brought up a few times, and just to sort of clarify the position of the Private Membership Association, everything we've done at UnWoke.academy is research. We look into these kinds of things, and we spell out for you, the public, our listening audience, what is happening in the world of finance. We're going to call out the good guys. We're going to call out the bad guys. We've had some people that I think are worth your consideration on this show. Thankfully, we've had some great guests like Matt Tuttle from Tuttle Capital. I believe that he is worth consideration. Look at him, talk to your financial advisors about Tuttle Capital. Same thing with Justin Bernier from National Security Index. That's the guy who's looking internationally and looking for investments that aren't detrimental or potentially harmful to the US and our allies. That's really important. People should be thinking a lot more about that. And that in my book, equates to the health and nutrition of your financial diet. That's where the analogy comes in. That's where things like this uh, come in, where we consider the implications of the things that are being put into your portfolio. They can be harmful, and many of them, as we're learning, are harmful. Yes, of course, over the last several months, we've paid very close attention to something called USAID. That's been taxpayer funded and apparently has been doing all sorts of harmful things that is anti-West, anti-United States, and peddling propaganda against Western values. And sure, we should continue to pay attention to that. But we cannot continue to turn a blind eye to what's happening inside our investment portfolio. About once a quarter, you probably get a 401k statement. I've watched some prior episodes where I show you how to do analysis on whether or not that's woke. Are you funding the very woke, far left, anti-American, anti-West, anti-capitalist endeavors that so many other people are? If you are, there are better alternatives. Out of all of the research that we've been doing for years at UnWoke came a financial private membership association. The origins of that are similar. They have everything to do with the fact that a company that I own has been under examination. I call them weaponized regulators for 4 years. I have 4 years of attack from weaponized regulators who would like nothing more than to silence me and shut me down. Well, that's not happening. I'm fighting back, and I continue to fight back. One of the things I learned along the way that led to the light bulb going on, I learned a lot about private membership associations, or PMA for short. I suggest going back and do a little research online. You're going to find that they're very established in the United States. They've gone through the legal underpinnings. They've gone into the Supreme Court. They've been challenged and questioned, and they're a winning answer for we the people. So I took that and applied it to finance. I believe that we are the first out of the gate with a financial PMA. That's our website, by the way, financialpma.com. And so far, I think still only financial PMA. One of the things that happened during the course of the 4 years of weaponized regulators attacking me and my company is I discovered the intention to data mine. There is a profound appetite to know about your financial life on the part of Wall Street, globalist banks, and the regulators that are paid by them. These regulators overwhelmingly are very, very interested in everything about you. How you invest, where you invest, if you own crypto, where you own crypto, how often you trade, what kind of trading you do, where you spend your money, everything. And my objective is to try to create an environment where we can eke out as much privacy as possible, hence the private membership association. But an interesting thing happened along the way. We applied the research. We started to talk to people about better ways to invest. By the way, everything I'm talking about is free and open to the public. You can take it, run with it wherever you want. There is no obligation to join the financial PMA. I hope you do. I hope more people come and join us, become members. We'd love to have you. But if you don't, take it somewhere else and create your own financial PMA. Talk to a financial advisor. See if you can get people to leave Wall Street and go and strike out on their own and work in the best interests of their clients, not the product sales push. Because again, using that analogy of the $8 a bag junk food, the junk food of many of these different types of pooled investments is cheap, it's easy, it's massively profitable to the firms selling it. But here's where the rubber meets the road. We have somebody that joined the financial PMA, and I personally helped this woman on October 7th and October 8th with a few different accounts opened, and I helped her to invest in a portfolio of not woke companies, the ones that have been cash starved for years, that represent opportunity for the next new thing. And some of them are actually very well established companies, but they'd really been languishing because they didn't have capital to continue to grow and expand. A nice diverse portfolio, just the way that you would want it, instead of going to a mutual fund and allowing some mutual fund manager who may or may not be woke, chances are probably good they're woke if you're seeing them, instead of paying investment management fees, which is very typical, what this person did is built a stock portfolio. I encouraged and coached her through buying an array of different stocks in a diverse portfolio. And through June 16th, her main portfolio, the largest of them, had an unrealized gain of 38.54%. In the same period of time, the S&P 500, which I'll continue to argue is just a massively manipulated and awful index, that had a return of under 3%. Although I think a lot of that, and I continue to argue, a lot of that supposed 3% is fictional. We have too much new money being pumped into too few companies. And so that's just I guess the word I want is predatory. It is a harmful environment. And I don't encourage people to try to replicate anything like the S&P 500, especially if you're not woke and don't want these woke companies attacking America and Western values. That's a side note. I continue with that side note. So here's somebody who is over 30% return for about an 8-month period of time, compared to indexes. And the other one, what do we look at? The Dow Jones Industrial Average, I think, was under 1%. And again, those are not healthy indexes. Here's somebody, she knows what she owns. She's not paying advisor or investment management fees. She has a crystal clear portfolio, and she is enjoying some perfectly wonderful gains on that portfolio. I suspect as we continue to roll out and experience Trump's America First investment policy statement, which was released on February 21st of this year, I believe we're going to continue to experience the rebirth of free markets and recapitalization of small, mid-size, and large companies. And some of that money, I believe it has to come out of those mega globalist, overfunded, huge, just expansive, overfunded companies. I know I said overfunded twice. By the way, I'm going to pause and interject. Don't forget to like this post, share it with friends. Let's engage in the conversation. Every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, I go live on X, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube with a discussion about the Private Membership Association. I'll bring you updates. I'll talk about the companies that we're looking at, why we're looking at them, any of those that we cross off the list, if we see that they're going woke, any of those, and any questions you might have. Recently, we talked a lot about Costco and their use of implementing racism. They are driving racism in their conversation. They're using critical race theory. I don't think anybody should approve of that or like it. Critical race theory rebranded as diversity, equity, and inclusion is still racism. And it's not okay, it's not acceptable, and we should not allow for that. Bring your questions, bring people back to the conversation, and let's do it. Let's have a conversation about what's healthy and what's not. Because if your 401k, your IRA, your brokerage account, your 403b, or whatever, if all that stuff that you are pumping your money into, especially if you're still working and you're doing payroll deduct and some of your money is going into your savings for your future, for your retirement, why sacrifice your morals and your value system, and probably, based on what we're seeing here, your investment returns and performance, avoid America First and end up with terrible performance, because that's what's happened during the 8 months. I'm comparing those indexes everyone seems to want to talk about to what this woman is experiencing in the Private Membership Association. As I said, the PMA may or may not be for you. Check out the website. There's a little intro video that I put on the main page on the website. Watch that. Take a look at it. Hit us with your questions. Bring back any of your questions to the live stream or email directly to info@unwokeinvesting.com. And again, I'm going to say over and over, we are not trying to take over the whole world and the whole marketplace. We're driving information. And if you have somebody in your life that you know, like, and trust who works in finance, bring them into the conversation as well. Direct them to this website. They can take advantage, and nothing would make me happier. And if a vast number of financial advisors take what I'm doing and replicate it, build their own financial PMA. We need them all over the country. We need to reclaim and put a flag, literally a flag, back into the hill that we'll die on. And that is what we decide to fund for the future of this great nation and Western values. That's what UnWoke.Academy is all about. And that's where the financial PMA came from. I'm Jonathan Broadbent. This has been another episode. Thanks for listening.